The following is an Operation Podcast production.
Our brain wasn't designed for our life we have right now. We need to exercise the brain just like we would a body. We need stress for the brain to learn, but you need recovery. So if you do a puzzle for 15 minutes, you need 30 minutes of recovery.
We need recovery from doing a puzzle?
Yes, especially when you're older. What happens when you were born, you were fully wired. Your 100 neurobit processor, 100 billion neurobit processor is just going crazy. But as you learn, we actually get stupider. We don't get smarter. Our brain unwires. It's called neural pruning. But if we challenge ourselves and do different things, we do something called neurogenesis. We start to grow our brain in the ways we want it. It's all about brain energy. If I could measure your brain, it would probably be around 10.1 volts. When you were born, it was 18.1. If you get dementia, we know your voltage in your brain is about a 7. If you get Alzheimer's, it's a 4. If we can get that energy up, then you won't have those symptoms anymore because the system knows how to fix itself. But if you don't have the energy, it's like you have a Lamborghini in the garage, but you don't have any gas in the tank. That's some form of mitochondria and ATP production in the brain. And there's easy ways to do that.
Which we're going to get into, so everybody stick around.
I'm Dr. Patrick Porter. I'm the founder of BrainTap. If your brain isn't working the way you want, we help fix that. Welcome to Ever Forward Radio.
Brain fitness. That might be a new concept for my audience. So let's really kind of reevaluate, rethink brain fitness. Do you think a lot of people think brain health is about, puzzles or memory games or just how, quote, sharp you can be or get to be? Why do you say that that's really not enough?
Yeah, those are bogus. That's why Luminosity got taken off the App Store because it doesn't do any long-term benefit. Those are actually stressing out your brain, which is good. We need stress for the brain to learn, but you need recovery. In fact, we talked a little bit about Tom Brady. Tom Brady says 1 minute of exertion, 2 minutes of recovery. So if you do a puzzle for 15 minutes, you need 30 minutes of recovery.
We need recovery from doing a puzzle?
Yes, especially when you're older. What happens when you were born, you were fully wired. Your 100 neurobit processor, 100 billion neurobit processor is just going crazy. But as you learn, we actually get stupider. We don't get smarter. Our brain unwires. It's called neural pruning. But if we challenge ourselves and do different things, we do something called neurogenesis. We start to grow our brain in the ways we want it. Because remember, from 0 to 7, mom, dad, brothers, sisters, preachers, and teachers were telling you who you're going to be, and you formatted. That's why the Benedictine monks say, hey, give me a child till they're 7, I'll give you a Catholic for life. Because they program the brain. So and also we know that neuroplasticity, which back in the 2000s, I've been doing this since 1986, but back in 2000, we said, this is the decade of the brain or whatever. I'm saying finally in 2010, they started doing it because bigger schools like MIT and other universities started to research the brain and find out we can fix the brain at any age. If you're out there listening and you have trouble, right, cognitive troubles, listen up because we have solutions for you. You don't have to buy my equipment. We'll give you some tips you can do right at your own home.
I'm so glad you brought up the neurogenesis aspect. I've hit on that a few times over the years with certain guests in the neuroscience and neurophysiology world. And I've been met with some rebuttal on that, saying that humans in particular cannot actually have neurogenesis. There can be no new neuron creation.
That's totally false. There's so much evidence out there. What happens is your body, your brain, in fact, just let's talk about your body for a minute. In 2003, they mapped the human genome, right? And they said, wow, we mapped it. No, we only mapped 1%. That other 99% is junk. And then in 2018, they discovered a technology that now tells us that 99% is there changing every 40 seconds. So every DNA pair in your body is changing every 40 seconds.
My DNA is changing in my body every 40 seconds.
It's already changed so many times since we've been sitting here because it uses mirror neurons to your environment, what you've drank, what you thought, what you think about, who you're around. All these things play a role in how your body shows up. If you're an optimist, your body's going to upregulate to its most, in fact, they did a study during COVID that showed people that looked at life, that COVID as a challenge rather than a threat, actually produced 200 times more energy at the cellular level. This is mitochondrial health. So when you're a pessimist, that's why I always tell people, if you don't worry about that pessimist, they're going to live 6.5 years less because it kills you. It basically is like putting wet leaves on your fire. Your emotional state is the most important state to correct your physiology, because it's controlling your sympathetic to parasympathetic drive. And when you're a negative thinker, you're always on what's going to happen to me? How's this going to hurt me? It's other than say, how am I going to handle this? I got the skills. That's why I think sports and doing things like that is so important for kids to learn that it's not always going to be easy. Not everybody's going to get a trophy. You're going to have failures. In fact, every day you should be prepared. It's not going to go my way. So what? Get over it, and figure out what you're going to do. And when you have the right neuroplasticity, which means brain energy, this takes energy. What they're really talking about is if you eat the standard American diet, you live the standard American life, no, your brain is not going to neurogenesis because the average person, I just read in an article here about a week ago, the average American spends 3 hours a night on their couch watching TV. So I'm wondering who's watching my 3 hours. You know what I mean? So it's like that's
3 hours of old Everford radio episodes, of course, right? Of course.
Well, they can do that walking, riding their bike. They can do it driving. Yeah. I mean, I'm not saying you don't want to relax and have a good time, but your body doesn't know the difference. Actually, they've now shown 20 minutes of sitting is the health equivalent of smoking a cigarette.
This is kind of old news. I remember back in my clinical days, I was a clinical wellness director for many years and health coach. And that was kind of the big thing around, I guess it was 2015, 2016 was saying that sitting was the new smoking, and how people were so gung-ho to do a morning workout, then go sit at a desk for their job 7-8 hours, and saying that even negated the workout. Is that still true?
I don't think it negates the workout, because working out in the morning is actually twice as good as doing it in the evening, because your sugar stores are not in your bloodstream anymore.
But then the whole sedentary aspect.
The sedentary, what the problem is we're not designed to live in the world we live in. These bodies, I mean, if we were, let's say, human engineers, and we were building a body to live in this world, it wouldn't be designed like ours, because we're designed to be out in sunlight. Sunlight actually activates something in every cell of your body called a chromophore. It actually is instructing your body. That's why if you don't get to bed by 10 o'clock, you don't make as much melatonin. If you're not in bed by 11, you don't clean your liver. At 2 o'clock this afternoon, everybody listening to this, you're going to have a drop in temperature 2 degrees. Now, how does your body know to do that? It's because the sun is beaming those codes to your body. It's called the circadian rhythm. Mm-hmm. It's not your biology. Your biology is a separate thing going on over here. But while you're doing your 2%, whatever that is on the conscious level, that 98% of the body is still being taken care of. And it's all being done on autopilot. Mm. So if you don't interrupt that pattern, the body says, this is the way we've always done it. I always say you can have addictions, but they need to be good addictions. Bad addictions are bad, right? So the thing is that people, if you know it's an addiction, it's no longer unconscious. Mm. You can make a conscious choice. Mm-hmm. Now that takes energy, right? It also takes energy to meditate. It takes energy to visualize. These are all brain things. And that's why in ancient times, they developed yoga and Tai Chi. Most people don't realize yoga is not for exercise. Mm-hmm. All these women that go and do it, and then they jump up. They never do the laying down, what they call the corpse pose. In India, yes. When I go to India, they say that's the most important pose. That's when all the neuroplasticity happens. Mm. So when you lay there for just 5-10 minutes, now your brain can rewire. Most people don't realize if you sleep well, which 2/3 of the world isn't doing, we're going to talk about that I know a little later. Mm. What happens is there's more neurological activity happening while you sleep than when you're awake.
That's why last data I looked at was about 25 to 27% of our total daily caloric expenditure happens by the brain predominantly while we're asleep. So just think about that for a second. An organ that we don't really have control over, just runs in the background. And then when we're asleep, much less, is using a quarter at least of all of our daily calories needed to just exist. And
during the day, because there's stress.
Yeah.
I've never met anybody yet who is carbohydrate deficient. Your body produces sugar. Mm. You have glucagon in your liver. When you have a stress event, it dumps into the bloodstream. That's 5 tablespoons of sugar. Mm. Now you have to secrete fat storage hormones to take that fat out of the bloodstream, and your brain's still waiting for the ketones. So we're not eating for the type of food that we need to get our brain working for us. And stress is the number one thing. Until you turn off the spigot on the stress, I don't care. You can eat the world's greatest diet. It's not going to budge because your biological system is set up for failure. And most people think, I got up in the morning, I had a bagel and an orange juice. I'm healthy today. No, you just gave yourself a glycemic nightmare. Mm. For the rest of the day, you're going to be chasing sugar for the rest of the day.
Let's reel it in just a little bit. I want to go back to something that has stuck with me when you said we're living in a time we're not meant to live in.
Right.
We're living in a time and a place where we have technology and screens and light and access to information, and we are accessible by other people way more than we used to be. So there are a lot of things we can do to get through this. But sorry, is that me? I just stopped. Okay. Sorry about that. I had a phone. Phantom. I think it was somebody through the wall. Phantom phone. I'm gonna go back and rephrase that. So you said, we're not. The times right now we are not meant to be in our time.
Right.
It's kind of,
our brain is not designed for this time.
But we are. So here we are having the bodies that we do in the modern age that we live in. I'm not really quite sure the question there, but it's just, we are where we are. And so we have to navigate it appropriately. So really, what is the best course of action, generically speaking, for where we are as a species to live with the times and hopefully not have the times kind of like set us back?
Right. Think of every cell of your body like a capacitor. It holds a charge. And if we have good ways to discharge, like riding a bike or exercising, eating healthy foods, our body discharges on its own. But let's say we're now putting another stress load on it by eating junk food. We're not moving and breathing, all the things we need to do. Well, all that stress goes into the body. Eventually, the body is going to have an outlet. Unfortunately, it's showing up as illness because the weakest link gets snapped. So first of all, you got to start every morning off, not just with exercise. Exercise is actually bad if you haven't dealt with stress first. You already have high cortisol. Now you're going to go burn out your muscles.
So you're saying working out first thing in the morning is actually a bad thing to do.
You got to get your brain ready first.
If our brain is not.
When I wrote an article for Brain Fitness magazine called The Brain-Body Connection. When you are in an alpha state, you create more acetylcholine. This is what binds muscle at the junction. You will build more muscle, just like juicing, but it's your own juice. You have the world's greatest pharmacy between your ears. So activate it. Get ready, just like a professional player would get ready to play a game. When you get ready for the day, get ready for your day. It only takes 10 minutes. We call it SMR training, sensory motor rhythm.
Walk us through how do we then get into this alpha state you mentioned to prepare our bodies and muscles?
Of course, if they had the BrainTap, they just press play and do it. But if you don't have BrainTap, what you do is I like to teach people the psychological breath. It's really easy. You just take a deep breath in, let it out. But you do that for 3 to 5 minutes. And it might seem silly. You don't want to do it around people because they'll think you're nuts.
Is this through the nose or through the mouth?
You breathe in through the nose, hold it, and then just shake it. Just like if you've seen a pet that shakes, they're getting rid of all that nervous energy.
So deep inhale through the nose, hold at the top, and then deep exhale through the nose as well?
No, the mouth.
The mouth,
As much as you can, as fast as you can. Just like we do if they call it a psychological sigh because we do it anyway. When we get fed up with something or we're tired and somebody goes, why'd you get that big sigh? And you go, you didn't even realize you're doing it. But you're going to get what that does for the nervous system. It says, hey, you're in sympathetic drive, fight, flight, responding. So when that switch is there, you can't burn fat. You can't think right. In fact, you've lowered the blood flow to the frontal cortex.
So you're saying really the best pre-workout anyone could have is just a couple minutes of this unique breath pattern?
Yes. Then now when your body's relaxed, then you visualize what you're about to do. It amazes me that we go to movies, we go to see TV shows and all these things. They rehearse and then they put out a product. People get up every morning, do the same things they've always done, and then bitch and complain to people about their life not changing. You get what you rehearse in life, not what you intend. So if you've not taken the time to use, and it all happens within the brain, you're doing it anyway. But the problem is that most people, when they go to sleep, that's when all the compartmentalization of all the experiences you had during the day get summarized, organized, and put in the different places in the brain. If I asked you to think of your favorite vacation, you probably wouldn't have a problem, but you just lit up 10 places in your brain to do that. And that's an easy one because it's fun. So, but let's say you're getting a little older, you don't have the energy. And one of those pieces of information, the nerve doesn't get the transmission. The brain says, well, we don't need that anyway. We don't need that anyway. Pretty soon it says, we don't even remember that memory anymore. The memory is still there, but the recall of it's kind of like having a hard drive with a file allocation table.
The files are still there, but it's just our directory, our ability to go from here to there gets severed or just
in neuroscience, they've opened people's heads up and they probe different regions of the brain. People had experiences of sitting at a restaurant, talking to somebody and listening to a conversation behind it. They had full memory of it all because we recorded it all. Our brain is really good at omitting things. That's one of the problems we have, like mold and things like this that we're exposed to. Because if we don't take action on it, the brain goes, well, must not be a problem. It turns off the warning switch. It's like putting a black light over your engine light. Once you start getting sniffles and you flu-like symptoms, if it's not the flu, it's probably your environment, probably something in your environment that's causing you to do that. And so you figure that out. Most people don't realize if you don't have good air, good water, and eating plenty of fat, fiber, and protein, your body's not going to function very well. Everybody's unfortunately, we're taught to go to fast food and convenience and all these things, but we don't have to eat as much either, is what everybody thinks. I mean, most people overeat. Even most people that are overweight actually are undernutrition. They don't have the nutrition they need. They might be eating a lot, but the body's going, I'm robbing Peter to pay Paul here. I got to, because your body's going to take care of itself while you're taking care of yourself. And then later on, the body's going to say, time to pay the piper.
So then to kind of go back under the umbrella here of brain fitness, can you really define brain fitness for us? And how is it different from things like mental health or even cognitive training that we kind of hit on?
Well, I like both those things. They're good, but they're only one thing. What we need is tools that people can use. I call it Tai Chi for the mind. Because you can't, if I teach you a tool, and I'll just use music as an example. Music is a really good way to relax and unwind. We did a study in Brazil with 1,000 students. And there's something called the Mozart effect, which is you play Baroque classical music, the brain, people get smarter just by listening to that music. It's been well studied. So we wanted to see what would happen. So we did it, 1,000 students. Yeah, their brain went into alpha. They had more cognitive skills. But as soon as the music was off, it was off. They went right back to their stress brain. We put the algorithm that I developed over the last 40 years in the background of that music, which is tones, light, sound, vibration, frequencies, right frequencies, Nogier frequencies, solfeggio frequencies. These are all mixed into a blend. And the brain then responded in a way that it took 72 hours for it to remember to go back to the stress state. So we interrupt that pattern. It's about interrupting that pattern. It's not what we do occasionally that matters. It's what we do all the time that matters. What are the little things we're doing?
Oh, I'm sorry. So this is kind of blowing my mind right now. Pun intended, I guess. So are you saying that intelligence, ability to learn, to retain information, to acquire new skills, to get mentally sharp, to get into that next level high performance state that I and a lot of my audience are after, is not always or not just a matter of innate intelligence or innate learning skills. It's just a matter of
everybody has innate learning
energy
skills.
Frequency and through things like music and tonality, and we can actually change the way that our brain is able to.
If you change the way your brain functions, if you had, let's say we were measuring your brain, you had 35% beta and 20 to 30% alpha and 10% theta, you would be in the optimum learning state. You would learn more. To give you an example, my science officer who wrote the book with Dr. Hamlin, Photobiomodulation in the Brain. So he's a pretty smart guy about the brain too, so I hired him. And we were in India. We're going around touring, and he speaks 6 languages already. So by 3 weeks are up, he's starting speaking Hindi to people. And I said, Francisco, when did you learn Hindi? He goes, we've been here for 3 weeks.
Oh, no way, come on.
Because the brain, I'm also the dean of brain-based medicine at Quantum University, where we teach natural medicine doctors how to get their degrees. But we talk about the brain, and we took their whole course and made it into BrainTap courses. What they used to do in 4 years, they do in 2 years with better memory and recall. Because it's about, you have a state of mind in alpha and theta, it's called hypermnesia, super memory. You have a super memory state. Everybody has a perfect memory. It's the recall network. So when you're under stress, it's like, don't give me one more thing to do. Well, the brain's going, don't give me one more thing to do. But when you lower the brain frequencies, in fact, Virginia Hunt, who used to be over here at UCLA, she proved the energy field, which the NIS, National Institutes of Health, NIH, if you go to their website and put in biosphere, you're going to see they have known about it since 1994.
What is this?
It's an energy field that surrounds you. You have a magnetic field.
That's what EMF field?
No, it's your own. It's infrared light and energy and magnetics. And you have a bunch of those fields going on. That's why they can measure you when they do an x-ray and they can do a CT scan because you have frequencies inside you that they're measuring. It's not you, it's the frequencies. What she showed was the more stressed a person is, the less that field expands. What NIH says is all illness starts in that field. It's a field of thought. Our thoughts are more powerful than things. Thoughts create the things we're experiencing. You can change all the things you want, but if you don't change the thoughts, you're going to sabotage your success. You're going to ruin your failure. That's why every day it's a daily thing. Like in the middle of the day when I was talking about 2:00, we do a full reboot at 20 minutes. We did a research study with Google and Microsoft. Right after COVID, they contacted me, Julie Arndt, who's got a really good video online about the study, where we took these were the top producing programmers at Google. But they were burning out and they were leaving. That's a lot of money for them. And I said, well, just have them do a session at 2:00 in the afternoon. They won't have burnout anymore. He goes, well, why is that? I said, because everybody has burnout at 2:00 in the afternoon. It's a natural biological thing. We're not designed to live in these. We're designed for the Serengeti. What are they doing at 2 o'clock in the afternoon? They're sitting in the shade. The lion might be sitting 10 feet away. It's not doing anything. It's too hot. Our bodies are designed for that. We're designed to take a nap. But the problem is we don't have 4 hours. So what we've done is using light, sound, and vibration, we compressed it into 20 minutes. Now, we had a hard time getting them to do it at first, but in 2 weeks, we showed them they were getting 26% more work done in the afternoon than they were before, which meant they were doing a day and a quarter more work by taking a 20-minute break.
Oh my God.
Seems counterproductive. But what happens is when you have that cortisol drop, when we wake up in the morning with this high cortisol, most people run to get coffee at that same time. Crushes this curve. Now the brain doesn't know how to operate. I believe you should not drink coffee for 2 hours at least after you wake up.
I strive for at least an hour and a half is kind of my preferred point.
And then your brain starts using its own neurotransmitters. You should have norepinephrine, dopamine, and cortisol when you wake up in the morning. You should be ready for the day. You just slept all night. Why do you need a damn cup of coffee? Now, if you want it because you like it and it gives you a little peak, and then of course at night we need to do something to shut down the brain. We're overstimulated. If you and I were back 2,000 years ago, we're sitting by the fire having this podcast instead of here, we would have logs burning, right? Yeah. And we'd looking at it. And you ever been mesmerized by a fire?
Always.
Yeah, because that fire is crackling at 10 hertz frequency. That's alpha. It's emitting infrared light, just like every biohacker does in their bedroom. But they were doing it back then. So what happens with that is it lowers your cortisol so you can get to bed. That's why red light therapy is so good before you go to bed.
Wow.
And turning off the lights. But it's not about blue light in the eyes. I mean, yeah, you can wear those when you're on computers after 6 o'clock, but it really bugs me when I see biohackers wearing these glasses during the day. They're going to have seasonal affective disorder. We need blue light. If you don't get blue light, you're going to be sad. You're going to be upset and angry because we live in a blue world. We need blue light. But it's a marketing thing. Everybody needs to wear them, so these guys wear them all the time. Wear them at night when you're watching TV, if you're sensitive. And blue-eyed people actually are more sensitive than brown-eyed people. They bring in more light. Mm-hmm. So so when you think about that, but what we do at night is now let me tell you the breathing pattern for the afternoon first, so that they understand they don't have to buy BrainTap to do it. But in the afternoon, Navy SEALs learn this breathing technique.
Box breathing?
Box breathing. And we teach it to everybody. And imagine you're one of 5 people that's going to take on a battleship. I'm sure you might look on the outside like you're really tough, but inside you're probably, going to the bathroom in your pants or something. Because who knows what's going to happen. But they found that if you breathe into the count of 4, hold to the count of 4, breathe out to the count of 4, hold it out to the count of 4, do that for 3 to 5 minutes. It shifts again out of sympathetic drive into parasympathetic. When you're in parasympathetic, now you could rest, digest, and recover. You can't do them at the same time. It's an either or thing. So the thing is that most people hang out over here and then think, I need a cup of coffee. Now they're making it worse. They don't need a cup of coffee. They need a reboot. Just like we did with the old Microsoft computers. What's the problem? I'll just restart it. Yeah. That's kind of our brain, the way it works. Now at night, we teach the 4-8 breath.
What's that?
When you breathe into the mental count of 4, you're gonna study the tension in your body. And you're gonna probably trigger a little parasympathetic activity, which is fine at first because you've not trained your brain yet. And remember, your brain is not located between your ears. That's only one brain. You have a brain in your gut that has more neural connectivity than the one between your ears. But the one brain that's most important, that most people never even consider, is the 40,000 neutrino cells that are in your heart. It's a heart brain. It tells the other 2 what to do. That's why we have heart math. We have heart rate variability like the whoop you're wearing. That's measuring that brain. Because it comes through the pulse. It's called the RR rhythm. We developed our own technology called NeuroCheck. I can measure 9 different parameters of the nervous system in 5 minutes. I can tell you if somebody's got BS equipment or not, because I measure it. Like when we did our study with NIH, we showed a 27% improvement with 1 session of BrainTap. And if they did that for 3 times a day for a month, that became their new baseline. So that meant they woke up that way. They didn't have to do anything. But the brain's like a muscle. It's hard when you get to the gym at first, and you don't like the sweat. But just like in the 70s when they thought, when I was in school in the 70s, we tried to get a gym in our Catholic school. And parents were actually petitioning to stop it because they thought we were going to stunt our growth because nobody knew about muscle building, Now, of course, everybody knows about it and nobody would deny we have to do something to physically keep our muscles going. That creates something called BDNF. Brain-derived neurotropic factors. So this is what neuroplasticity is. But the thing is, with just like yoga and Tai Chi, when you're done, you should take 5 minutes. Just sit there and do that deep breathing. Like the 4-8 breath's really good. Like after you take your shower, you got your towel on. Really let your brain absorb that. Because if not, if you get into the stress brain, it spins it off and doesn't get the same benefit that the real benefit happens. And just like cold plunging, which we have one at our lab, if you ever get to the East Coast, we'll take it. We have 6,000 square feet of just all sorts of toys for the body and measuring everything. Yeah. But what they found was when you do cold plunges and then you exercise, your testosterone goes up almost twice as much. So people that had low testosterone, they were getting good results with just a cold plunge. But if they add doing a little physical exercise afterwards, it just increases it because the body will respond to its environment. But everybody's looking for a pill. You can't have a pill without a skill.
Ooh, that's good.
If you only have a pill, then you have a problem. You know, when we did a study in Brazil, and then I'll go to the next question. We did a study with because this equipment was actually designed for pain clinics, and then opioids came out, and people said, "Well, we don't need that. We got these pills." But now everybody's getting addicted to them. They're only approved for 4 weeks of use. So we did a study in Brazil with one of the largest universities, Unisol University in Brazil, and we took half the people that were getting this surgery. They all had to be on opioids because they were going to be in pain. But what we wanted to show was if you have a skill with the pill, you can get off it. In 4 weeks, 100% of our people got off it. None of theirs did, and they're still on opioids.
They were off opioids that quickly.
Yeah, because the brain wasn't dependent on it. You have the world's greatest pharmacy. I went through surgery myself with my shoulder when I was younger. My dad was a Silva instructor and a therapist, and he took me through a technique, and I didn't have any pain. I didn't use any medication. They cut open my shoulder, took my bone out here, put a screw in there. I don't remember any of it, but he hypnotized me into doing it, and it worked because our body can do those things. I'm not something special. It's just I was trained to do it. The training's out there, and I think we can't leave it up to the medical profession that doesn't even know what they're doing. You know, they treat TBIs totally wrong. You shouldn't put them in dark rooms. That's insane. The body's a light receptive machine. You are a light being. If you don't get light exposure, you will start to be crazy. You know, that's why you got to get outside, ground, and get all the electrons from the earth and all these kind of things like Clint Oper talks about in his book, Earthing. He's a good friend of mine. We tell everybody to do that.
Grounding.
Yeah, grounding.
Also known as, yeah.
So, I mean, we can work with our environment and but we have to change the way we're playing the game. Just like we have to change our education system. It's stupid. They're training kids to take tests. They're not teaching them how to think. There's no critical thinking being done. You learn this test, you get this score, we get this money from the state or the federal government. And it's like, when I was in school, we did a lot of critical thinking and, you know, it wasn't all about tests. Of course, we did the test at the end of the year like everybody does. Sure. But it wasn't like the whole focus the whole year. My grandkids, I'm going, are you crazy? This is stupid. I mean, I was a great test taker, so I would have loved it. You know, it would have been easy.
I'm a horrible test taker. That's why school and I did not always get along. But put me in a real world situation, get tactile with it. That's my bread and butter for learning. Absolutely. You were hitting on a lot of things there, and we definitely touched on a few sleep health aspects. But to kind of like really ask you directly, and you know, shout out the homie Sean Stevenson. I want to dive into how to sleep smarter.
Sure.
Great book on sleep, guys. If you want to check it out, he wrote like the Bible, the blueprint when it comes to sleep health, in my opinion. Call it Sleep Smarter. So you often talk about this. You often talk about how to, quote, sleep smarter. What does that really mean in practice? What is sleeping smarter, not harder? Are we talking quantity, quality? What does that look like?
All the numbers you've heard about, throw them out the window. They're not true. The longevity study shows 6.5 hours is the best optimum time for sleep.
For everyone.
For everyone. That's just an average. You know, when they think about longevity-wise, you're going to live the longest, but you have to have 1 hour of deep sleep and 2 hours of REM sleep. If you don't have 1 hour of deep sleep, what happens? The reason for that is the sooner we can get you to Delta, and that's why I always, when I'm on Dave Asprey's stages and things like that, I always say, any of you biohackers want to challenge me, you do your real protocol. I'm going to do BrainTap before bed, and I'm going to beat you every time.
Brain tapping?
Yeah, that's my equipment.
Oh, the device, right? Yeah.
Like my wife showed me her score this morning, 94. You know, those 90s are normal for us. You know, every day, wherever I'm at, whether I'm traveling or not, because the sooner we can get you to Delta. Now, what happens in Delta is key. In 2015, grasp your reminder on this. In 2015, they discovered a new part of the human anatomy. Before 2015, there was no physiology book on the planet that talked about the glial lymphatic system. The garbage man of the system.
The glial system. Yeah.
They knew about the glial system, but they didn't know about the lymphatic part of it.
I first learned about this in Sean's book, Sleep Smarter. Yeah. Glial cells, the glymphatic system, the washing that happens of the cells, and the brain expansion and contraction during sleep. Well, if you're getting the good quality
If you're getting good sleep, your brain will shrink 3/4 of an inch. And then you got to hydrate in the morning. That's why you don't want to have the coffee, because that dehydrates you.
I want you to say that again, please. That's
your brain shrinks about 3/4 of an inch every night when you sleep. So because it's doing a lot of work, like you said, it's eating up. Yeah. You can burn more fat while you sleep than a good workout. If you give yourself 3 to 4 hours before sleep with solid food. If you eat solid food, then the digestive system has to take over. That's not controlled by you. That's why people can have neck injuries and their body still functions and does it. There's a whole nother brain that's doing those things. It's not your brain up here. It's the brain of the body. We have a body brain that's doing it. So, but what I was going to say about the glial.
It takes back to the glials.
Yeah. When you think about glial cells, for those that aren't familiar with it, just think about you're at a networking event, everybody's shaking hands and you're getting to know everybody. And at the end of the event, you want to go wash your hands, right? Even if you're not paranoid about that, you're going to say, wow, I touched all these people. Well, those glial cells need to be cleaned. So what happens is the brain is protected. Only during level 4 sleep does this system of the body called the glial lymphatic system develop and open up. They found it by accident during a sleep study.
And what exactly is level 4 sleep?
That's like the dreamless sleep. And you'll see on your Whoop, there's like the bottom number that, like on the Oura Ring, they have the bottom number.
Yeah, please keep going. I'm actually going to pull mine up and check it out.
It goes down in spikes, but then it goes back up. That's because every night when you go to sleep, your body's going through these different neurotransmitters. When people say, why am I so big on brainwave entrainment? If I get you into alpha, I'm going to make acetylcholine. If I get you to GABA, if I get you to theta, I'm going to make GABA. GABA is a precursor to DMT. If you want to have a mountaintop experience, you can create it yourself.
We've got the God molecule inside of us.
Yes. Yeah. We've done it with studies with PTSD victims. They were doing a psilocybin and some didn't want to take it. So we mapped the brains of people doing a psilocybin. I developed all the gamma sessions on BrainTap, mapped that same program. People are having a psilocybin trips with no psilocybin because it's not the psilocybin.
No.
It's your brain's reaction to it, just like every other medicine.
I'm curious, walk me through. So here's my data last night in my sleep of light, deep, rest, all the above. What are we looking at here?
Yeah, so you didn't have enough, you had enough deep sleep, 1 hour and 26 minutes. That's good.
Okay.
But your REM sleep, that's your dreaming sleep. That's how you process, is really low.
Last night was different for me than usual. I had a glass of wine.
Yeah. So that's probably why. But you still, to get that much deep sleep and have a glass of wine, that's pretty good.
Also, new parent over here, so.
Yeah, so the REM is that's where you're going to process everything. And that's when you might wake up with a crazy dream or a solution to a problem, things like that.
So with that data, and let's say, maybe someone in a similar boat, what are we looking at in terms of glymphatic system function?
Should be good.
Good, okay.
I mean, you're really good.
Okay.
I mean, 1 hour and 26 minutes, that's most people that we measure and we do, like we did a sleep study in Australia with coal miners. Because somebody said, your blue light's hurting people. I said, no, it isn't. I said, I'll show, we have so many studies. We have over 30 studies that are published. So we went to Australia because coal miners go to work in the dark. They work in the dark. They never see the light of the sun. And we have to do a pre-screening before we do this actual study. So they're all wearing the watches, like the Whoop kind of thing, but it is a clinical grade. And what we found out was the average coal miner was in bed 10 hours a night. The average coal miner made 1 minute of deep sleep.
Oh my God.
So that meant they were in bed, but they weren't sleeping. People they have a misconception. I'm in bed, therefore I'm sleeping. No.
Like shift workers, I know they're notorious for poor sleep health, even if getting 10 hours.
Right. So what we do is we show them, if you can get to delta faster, like most people, it takes 4 hours to go through their first cycle, which means when they go through that first dip, like you look at your dips, the faster you get to delta, the more you're going to have. So you look like you go to delta very quickly, and then you're going to go back there because your body's going to go through these. Think about it like you're going to the grocery store and you're buying neurotransmitters every time. You're buying now there's 54 of them. We're not going to go over it, but you're building up that neurotransmitter. We can measure that at the lab. So we show people, usually there's about a 30% increase in neurotransmitter activity after a BrainTap session because you've tuned the body into what it does naturally. We're not telling the body to do anything unnatural. We're saying if in nature, let's say you and I we're getting back from hunting and gathering all day. If you happen to walk by a stream or a river or an ocean, you actually expose yourself to alpha because that earth has a resonant frequency. The Schumann frequency, which is 7.8 hertz frequency, which most people talk about, that's like the mountaintops. But when you're near different things, like the forest has a 10 hertz frequency. These are all alpha. They make you alert, aware, conscious. That's why when you're walking through them, and your brain actually responds to that. Every minute of every day, every second actually, every 40 seconds is what they're saying, these DNA pairs change. And we're getting that from light, not from the food. Now, of course, we put food in us, it's going to have to break down that DNA and all the other stuff, because the food you eat does become who you are.
Can you take us back to, so if I'm understanding correctly, the quicker we can get to deep sleep by means of a quick shift to delta wave. So those are the two goals, right?
Yeah,
getting to delta, getting to deep.
First, there are a lot of people out there that get to delta quickly, but they never unwind their body. They're clenching their teeth, their fists, they're balling up.
So how
so that's when you do the 4-7 breath or 4-8 breath. Where you breathe into the count of 4. You got to unwind the body. Teach the body to release that tension. Because some people, if you've been talking to them, and those listening, you'll notice now when you're talking to somebody, they'll start holding their breath around you. Then they go, most people hold their breath. That's the worst thing. Most people don't know how to breathe. It seems like the simplest thing. If you breathe, what does every negative emotional state have in common? Every one of them. There's not one emotional negative state that doesn't have this in common. Breath.
I was going to say contraction of breath.
Right.
Yeah.
So when you think about when your kids get a little older and they're not in the crib or whatever, they come running up to you, they're angry. Like my grandkids, Eli comes running up, he's angry. If I say, just breathe, he's going to get angrier because he knows as soon as he breathes, he's going to lose that anger. It's going to be gone. Because you can't have anger in a breath state. You have to hold on to it.
Well, then take us to what is the quickest way for the mind and the body to, I guess, both relax, to get into delta wave state, to allow this 1 to 2 hours deep brain state, deep sleep state?
The best way is to do the 4-8 breathing. And what we teach, and it's on most of our sessions too in our series, but the first time through, you just got to get used to doing the body. But once you get that learned, the next step is you breathe in whatever those problems are and you own them. Because those problems will keep showing up until you learn from them. That's why when I was I had a franchise company, so we had a lot of therapists, 7 to 8 therapists in every clinic, 58 of them. And the biggest thing we'd find is people coming in like in relationships saying, I'm marrying the same guy, I'm dating the same guy, or I'm dating the same girl. Well, because you're doing the same things. You got to do something different. So
nothing changes if nothing changes,
yes.
Right? Yeah.
And then when you breathe out, as soon as you get the body relaxed, you start creating a gratitude kind of journal in your mind. It could be something as simple as, I'm grateful for these sheets I'm under. I'm grateful for the room I'm in. I'm grateful for somebody sleeping next to me, if that's the case. I'm grateful for the sunshine. But you got to get your brain ready to become an optimist. Until you make that switch, there's no help for you. Negative thinkers. That's why closed-minded people, I don't even spend the time of day with them. I say, you need to be, that's why they keep having the hard times, because they're trying to get woke up. They go, I don't believe that. Tell me. I just told you that's science. I mean, we've been doing this for 40 years. We get great, like our dementia study. Every person in our dementia study, off dementia scale within 6 weeks. It's in a bigger study right now at Seminole College, over 100 people. As soon as their brain voltage gets up over 7, they don't have dementia symptoms anymore.
Are you talking through just these changes in like the sleep health we were just talking about?
Well, the sleep health is a byproduct of doing this brain fitness I'm talking about.
Okay.
Sleep is normal. Your child probably doesn't have a problem sleeping. So unless it has upset stomach or something like that, we could sleep like, people think that's the way it's supposed to be your whole life. But the problem is we have all these other things our brain's going through. We have to think about what happened instead of just having it happen to us. Kids are like, the parents are arguing, and then, the kids are arguing, then the parents start arguing about the kids arguing. By the time they're done arguing, the kids are playing again because they forgot about it. They have a short memory. A lot of people, they don't have short memories for negative events. We need to have short memories for negative events and long-term memories for positive ones. And that's what we teach. And you really have to refresh your memories, because if not, life will wear you down. There's a lot of reasons to be pissed off and angry and upset, but there's also, this is the greatest time in the world to be alive. They can tune into your podcast anywhere in the world, right? They can listen to any kind of music they want, anywhere, anytime. Just 200 years ago, you'd have to be a king or queen to have an orchestra play for you. I can take out my phone and listen anytime I want. And people think, my grandkids didn't. We have a cabin. It had a dial-up phone. They're like, "What is that?" So
I still remember those days. Yeah. So we've kind of hit on in the beginning. We're talking about using this breath technique as a powerful pre-workout, if that's what you want to call it. There's just a ready state really before we get into a more physical state. And then also using breath to help the body and the mind calm down, to ease into and to get into better sleep stages. Where else can this breath technique be applied if it's not for exercise, if it's not for sleep? Where might also be a very practical daily
I tell
place
people
for
if you're driving and you get a stoplight, that's 4 minutes usually. You got 4 minutes to work on your brain. Do your box breathing, whatever breathing you want to do. If there's nobody in the car, you can do the psychological breathing.
So we can just use it whenever we have or make this time. It doesn't necessarily need to be in preparation for another change state.
Right. So kind of like watching Mr. Miyagi on Karate Kid. You're learning a technique that then the brain can apply in any place.
So just getting the reps in really is what matters most here.
You're getting it so the brain knows this is a solution, because addiction is only having one solution to an infinite number of problems. So what we want to train them to do is, in an infinite number of there's an infinite number of solutions for any one problem. That's the way the brain thinks. So, but if you think there's only one way, like cigarettes or alcohol or drugs or whatever it is, then your brain it actually closes the door on all the others. But if you go, look, pause and breathe, that's the secret. Because if we don't just react, so many people are reactionary because we're all on edge, right? There's a lot going on, and time's that important, and we're all moving. But if we if we don't pause and breathe, then later on we go, geez, I just wish I'd had a second to think about that. Well, you do. Nobody's forcing you to say anything. But you have to practice that, because again, you don't get what you want out of your life. Whatever you intend is bullcrap. You got to rehearse it. Every athlete knows that. Every person who's in theater knows that. You can't just say, I'm going to do that, or do an affirmation. And I love affirmations. Louise Hayes' company does my books. So, Hay House. So, they're very good. But I mean, the problem with affirmations are, and this is important for brain health too, affirmations are dead. If I say,
what do you mean?
When let's say I go, I'm rich, but then I can't pay my bills. There's no energy there. It's dead. But what if I say, what would it be like if all my bills were paid and I had an infinite amount of money? See the feeling in the nervous system? What, where, when, how, and whom. You start every affirmation with those questions. Now the brain takes action. If you make an affirmative statement, the brain goes, you already got it. You got this.
Does it need to be coupled with breath? I'm just wondering, is this like a superpower stack here by, this more correct way to get into affirmation, this thinking, seeing, believing, manifesting, if you will, coupled with proper breathing technique to get us actually in sync brainwave wise?
Yeah, once you start practicing this, you'll notice if you're holding your cheek, you're gritting your teeth, or you might look down and you're actually balling your hand into a fist. If you have stress and tension in your body, that's what you're manifesting. It doesn't matter what you say. Emotion drives behavior. So when you think about energy and motion, emotion drives behavior. So when you think about, you've got to, everything is a ritual. I always tell people, you don't have habits, you have rituals. Think about the way you brush your teeth, the way you comb your hair, the way you take your shower. If anything's out of place, you get a little agitated. Hey, where's my shaving? Where's my shampoo? Because there's a certain way we like to do things. We have to start changing those up, even the simplest things, so that we're not so, because our brain says, hey, it's simple. I'm going to neural prune. You're only going to do these things. It's going to be simple for me because, like you said, the brain is an energy hog. It's using up 25% of the resources of the body when you're awake and over 50% when you're asleep. So, I mean, you're talking about this brain, it only weighs 3 to 5 pounds, is eating up all this energy. And if it can conserve energy, it's going to do it. If it can offload energy, like the coffee in the morning, instead of doing its own neurotransmitter activity, it's going to say, go for it. If you want to drink alcohol and do your thing, it's going to say, go for it. It's going to look for the path of least resistance. So we're not controlled by our body, but some people let their body control them. We have to know that we've trained this body too, by the way. So it didn't come out of the factory box like this.
Yeah, I was going to ask if this breathwork technique and this way of breathing is the work and is the tool to get us into this higher performance state and higher, physiological state. If that's the best tool and best method for that, then what is the worst thing that we're doing that is, negating it?
Well, the worst thing is they do nothing. They just think, I'm going to deal with this later when I get older. But we have people having dementia at 30 years old now. When I was growing up, nobody had dementia. My grandparents were in older relatives in Iowa were playing cards into the 90s and 100s, counting cards and doing their thing. They didn't have the problems we have today because of the diet we have and the lifestyle. So if you don't get up, you have got to get up with intention every morning. What are you going to do today to make your life better? Because if you don't have that as your top priority, nobody else is going to have it for you. And then, so that means working out. So it doesn't have to be every morning, maybe just 3 times, because every 72 hours, your nervous system is going to reset. That's for anything. So when we mapped out the nervous system, it's just going to reset. So, but if you can interrupt that pattern, that's why they work out every other day on those muscles. Because those muscles are also chemical factories that are making you feel good. That's why people that work out are just happier typically, because they have all that raging, not just testosterone, but other neurochemicals that are making them feel good.
Endorphins, absolutely.
Endorphins.
Yeah. If you had to boil it down to one thing, what do you think is the number one worst thing someone is doing, whether they realize it or not, for their brain health?
Probably sugar. I was just on Fox News. I do a lot with Fox News. They call me all the time for stuff. And there was a research study showing that diet sodas make your brain dumber. And it was a big study. And people who drink diet drinks, it's worse than sugar drinks. But then they said, well, the sugar drinks are doing just the same thing, but it's
isn't this an age-old battle of like sugar versus artificial flavors and sweeteners? Yeah,
your body doesn't know the difference. Actually, you stimulate more insulin when you're eating.
Is that true? Because it's like the brain anticipates the sweetness, and so it still produces what salivary amylase to like kind of get the same.
You remember Pavlov and his dog, right?
Yeah.
So that study kept going. They don't publish it, but you can find out what happened at the end of that study was the dogs were still alive. So the guard would go down and feed them. What he was finding was before he got there, they were already salivating. And then he didn't have to ring the bell anymore. At that time of the day, they would salivate. And then when he'd walk down the hall, they would start salivating. Then they didn't do it for a while. They just salivated at that time. I said, that's the people sitting at their desk every day at 2:00, waiting for their Starbucks or their coffee or whatever they need to stimulate themselves because they didn't teach their body to do what it's supposed to do.
So I derailed this. Can you go back to this the study you were talking about? You shared with Fox News about diet soda.
Yeah. Well, basically what it showed was the diet sodas are killing the brain. And I don't know what's in Diet Coke, but everybody I know drinks Diet Coke can't go 2 hours without one.
So you're saying sugar is the worst thing we can do for our brain health, but if there's no sugar in diet soda, then what are we talking about?
It's artificial sweeteners.
Artificial. So sugar and artificial sweeteners.
I mean, you should replace it with maple syrup. Doesn't boost your blood sugar. Honey doesn't boost your blood sugar. Those are 2 sweeteners that are natural, and your body knows what to do with them. Our bodies have been eating those forever. And most people don't realize that the Hopi Indians said that 7 generations are influencing them today. They would always say that. Well, genetics now, DNA experts say 7 generations of your family are influencing you right now. Who's showing up at those times? Because it's being triggered because it's stored in you. That's why they could take a study. They did a study where they had duck eggs mixed in with chicken eggs, just to see what happened. And of course, the chicken were sitting on them. But when those ducks were hatched, they didn't stick around mama. They went and found water and started swimming because that duck had a different
without
DNA
even
pattern.
seeing it modeled.
Not even seeing it modeled. It was already in there. That's why when people think, no, kids are born with a little personality. They have something going on there before we start, messing with them or whatever it is.
I want to get into, in preparing for this interview, I was researching some, what I would consider recent studies, or at least published brain health studies in 20 to 25. And I think you hit on it earlier. You talked about the C word, COVID-19. I found one, and all this I'm going to link down in the show notes and episode video description box for you guys. But there was one really unique one that stood out, talked about COVID-19 and accelerated brain aging. And this came from Nature Communications, University of Nottingham, published 2025. This was a brain imaging study found that the stress and isolation during the COVID-19 pandemic may have prematurely aged the brain by an average of 5.5 months, even in people who never got the virus. Right. The strongest effects were seen in older adults, men, and those from disadvantaged socioeconomic backgrounds. So my question for you from this study is, with this information as a brain fitness expert, how can high performers, someone like myself and my audience, how can we counteract such external impacts and build resilience in face of such things like
they
global
need to think
pandemic?
like the medical doctors do. I mean, they don't get sick, right? They go into areas where they have malaria and all that, but they think they're above it all. Because you don't have, if people like Wim Hof, if you look up Wim Hof on YouTube, this is a breath expert. They inject poisons into him and he breathes it out of them. They don't affect him. Like one of these gurus you'd hear about, he's superhuman, but he's just doing something we could all do. And he's so convinced he can do it, they can inject poison into his body. So when you think of,
what do you mean, like actual poison?
Actual poison that would hurt you.
What?
Just look it up on YouTube and you'll see the studies about that. He actually published it, I think, on his website too, because he said you can change anything if you change your nervous system. So when you change your nervous system, this is what breathing is all about, staying in charge, and you have a thinking immune system. So what I mean by that is, for those out there that have allergies, I'm sorry to tell you, but 40% of them are psychosomatic. They prove that because if you look at the Weather Channel, why they have the allergy comes up there, they sell twice as much allergy medication because they show you a spore you never see in the world, but they show it to you on screen this big. Now your fear comes in. That fear triggers an epigenetic response.
Damn.
So people start having runny noses and they have the flu-like symptoms
or
just by watching.
They see it out in public or at the park, like, oh, now that's in my brain, and so I assume that that's also going to be me or is me.
And what happened during that study is we're all under stress. How did you handle that stress? That's why the one study that I quoted was those that looked at it as a challenge produced 200 times more energy. So what does that energy do? The currency of the body is ATP. How do we get ATP? People think through food. No. Food is the least that it gets it from. It gets it from light. It gets it from sound and vibration.
Oh, you're making me dig deep. Krebs cycle.
Yes, Krebs cycle.
Glycolysis.
Yep.
Yeah.
So what happens is when you introduce light therapy, so when I say breathing is good, you add in BrainTap to it, you've just lit a match. You've taken a little spark and you made a fire. Because what we've shown is instead of that mitochondria producing one ATP molecule, let's say there's a little man in the middle of the cell, spins his hand. Every time he gets to 12, it spits out an ATP molecule, ATP. When you use red light therapy, it doesn't have to be brain taps, but ours are tuned light. So when it goes up there, 32 times more gets dumped into the stream.
Wow.
So now you've energized the body, and we can measure this. There's a lot of tools. We use one called WAVI, which is an EEG device that measures electrical activity in the brain. But in order to get that electrical activity, we have to have energy. If there's no brain energy, then we can't get that. And then and what happens is mitochondria, just like muscles in your body, they start to become used to producing more ATP. That's what we used to do when we were kids. We had 18.1 volts. Our body was producing so much ATP, so we could get a cut and it would heal in no time. We'd twist an ankle and be up and going in 2 days. It doesn't take weeks or whatever it's taking.
So if it's really about breath, and that makes me think of how then can I make sure I'm breathing the most efficient ways? So besides, building in this routine of box breathing or becoming more conscious, before certain events and like sleep and exercise, we've had some great guests on the show before talking about, nitric oxide and nasal breathing and versus mouth breathing. Can you walk us through briefly, I think the focus of nasal breathing and mouth breathing?
Well, what they know with each nostril, actually, we have a published paper on pranayama yoga, breathing, and how it affects the brain, because we're taking all the ancient traditions and we're proving out why they work. And then there's modern technology that makes do the same thing. But your right nostril controls your left hemisphere. So a lot of people don't even breathe regularly. So that's why when you hold a nostril, breathe, and all this, you're training your brain to start. There's a little flipper in there. And I didn't know this. I had a client that came in back in the 80s, and he'd come in and sound like this. I'm like, wondering what's going on. He goes, I had a surgery for it, but it's still clicking. It was psychosomatic. Every time he got around women or in a stressful situation, his nose would start clicking. It was a little flipper. You have a little flipper that says this nostril breathe, this nostril breathe, this nostril breathe, this nostril. But what happens is we get stuck in fight or flight. Now we can't have the creative brain going.
So hold on, can we test this? Like if someone wants to go close the right nostril, breathe through the left, close the left, breathe through the right. And if there's a difference, does that mean anything?
Oh yeah.
Besides maybe a deviated septum.
Yeah, could be that. Could be that. But the whole thing is that there needs to be balance in all things in the body. So just like in martial arts, if I do 5 kicks with my right leg, I'm going to do 5 kicks with my left leg. So we need to think about that with the breathing. So I find a lot of these breathing techniques, they're really good, but they're too complicated for the average user. So I broke it down to the easiest ones that they could remember and do. There's a lot more that you can do.
So if I want to enhance my brain health, should I focus on breathing through my left nostril or my right?
You should focus on just breathing through your nose.
Okay.
Most people are mouth breathers.
And nasal breathing predominantly during the day and sleep?
Night. That's why they have tape you wear.
I mouth tape for like 2 years now.
Yeah. So, and the thing is, even in books you'll read, they go, he was a mouth breather because his primitive brain. They're talking about the Neanderthal kind of guys. If you want to activate that higher order of thinking, you got to breathe through your nose. And when you breathe through your nose too, you don't gulp air and hold your breath. It's a steady flow of oxygen.
Can we even, jump ship a little bit and go, if I want to get more left brain thinking, want to get more right brain thinking, if I need to be in my creative brain, if I want to be in my critical brain, can I just focus more on left nostril versus right nostril breathing?
We've never done that, but it sounds like it would work. But the thing is that your brain, there's a little exercise we do. We actually have people stand up and they write their name in the air and they draw a circle in the air. You might have done that before. And you'll find that either you can write your name or you can do the circle. Which, let's say that you can't write your name because the circle went analog. It's no longer spinning. It's going like this because the brain collapses under stress unless you train the brain not to. That's what yoga does, martial arts, dancing, any kind of physical movement. We're so locked into, we always write with our right hand. We always do things, we're always so dependent. It used to not be that way. We used to have to do things with both hands. And that's what's causing this dysfunction in the brain. So the brain says under stress, I always tell people, imagine the world in crisis and half the computing power in the world shuts down because that's the way it's always done it. We need to teach the brain. That's where the brain fitness protocols with the light, sound, and vibration comes in because we're training the brain to stay awake during those times.
Fascinating. Another interesting study I found came from Parade in Cleveland Clinic, this survey 2024, saying that, quote, a survey found that 69% of Americans think about the risk of brain health issues like Alzheimer's and dementia at least annually, yet many delay seeking help. So there's this god-awful scenario that happens to humans that most of us, majority of us, are thinking about at least once a year, but yet we don't really do much to get ahead of it or to learn about it. So if 7 in 10 Americans basically are thinking at least once a year about the risk of these brain health issues, but they don't seek improvement, what do you think is behind this gap?
Well, I think it's because you can't just open the hood. It's not like a dipstick we can stick in. How much oil do we have? We think we have all the time in the world. There's another reason why 99% of the world retires broke, because they think they're going to deal with it later. I was talking earlier, there's 30-year-olds getting dementia now. The time to start about brain fitness is right now while you have a brain, while your brain's fully functioning. Tune it up. You want to have a peak performing brain. You don't want to just have a normal brain. And the key thing is that a lot of doctors, I've seen so many people that they go, it's not bad enough yet. Come back when it's bad enough, we can deal with you. What? Because we don't have a healthcare system. We have a sick care system. I told my wife, because we know Robert Kennedy, I said, we need to tell him they need to make passed laws that says this sick care system should not be called a healthcare system. You have to be sick enough for them to work with you. If you're not sick enough, they say, go home, get sick enough, come back, and we can put you on these things. It's stupid. We need to have a healthcare system that says, how can we maximize? That's what almost all the new people are out there that are, looking at supplementation and exercise and brain fitness and all these things. And the neurophysiologists we work with, they're looking outside the box because it's not going to be found in a box. It's going to be found in a lifestyle. And if people aren't willing to change their lifestyle, then they better find somebody who's going to help them to live their life, because they're not going to be able to do it on their own. Because our lifestyle of all the junk foods and all the bad additives and everything in the food, which we can process if we don't eat too much of it, and then start increasing your water production, start increasing your omega-3s, start increasing your, one of the things I should say to the listeners for food is, what I tell people is an easy solution. Don't do salad dressing ever again. It's the most sugar-laden thing.
Not even like oil and vinegar or just like traditional dressings?
No. Oil and vinegar.
Like ranch, Italian.
Yeah, the ones that are in the store that have 55 ingredients in them. Just take out a good California olive oil, put it on your salad, put Italian seasoning and salt and pepper. 40% less chance of Alzheimer's if you do that once a day.
Just by eliminating salad dressing?
By adding in olive oil.
Okay.
A teaspoon of olive oil. But you might as well put it in your salad, hopefully.
So it's not so much about salad dressing, it's about the addition of these healthy fats.
Yes.
Okay.
And people want they're eating a salad, but a lot of times salads actually have more of the bad calories in them, like the fast food place. You go, how does that have more than the burger?
Yeah, I saw some stat a while ago. I don't know if it's still true, but I think when McDonald's came out with their salads, it's like their salads actually had more sugar or they had higher calories in one of their burgers,
Right.
something crazy like that.
Yeah. It's like our taste buds have been perverted because everything is sugar. At the turn of the century, the average American ate 5 pounds of sugar a year. The average American has over 100 pounds of sugar a year now.
Come on.
Yeah. Because it's in everything. It's called by different names, but it's still sugar.
That's the biggest problem, yeah. So you've been sharing so much information on ways to enhance performance, brain health, sleep, by really tapping into something that is so universally innate, our breath, and awareness around it. But now we're learning how to leverage it through frequency, through timing, and through key application for those unique scenarios. What about when we look at supplementation? So breath, I think we all can have access to. What are maybe, we talked about healthy fats.
One of the best things.
What are some key things for
One of
brain
the
health?
best things for the brain that most people miss, even top nutrition people, is niacin. Niacin.
Wasn't expecting that.
Yeah. Niacin flushes out the capillaries. If you go get a blood test, they're giving you 23% of your blood. That's all you're looking at. The rest is in your capillaries. That's why when they did the study with the peanut oil and they said it was healthy, but they didn't tell you 2 months later all the monkeys in the study died because all that peanut oil went into their capillaries. It didn't go in their bloodstream. You don't have blood flow to your capillaries, oxygen, you're going to start getting neuropathy in the fingers and toes. And that's going crazy right now.
Isn't there a common allergy to niacin?
There could be. I would start off really slow. I do 4 niacin tablets in the morning, and I don't even get a flush anymore. I don't think I should take any more. But you want that flush because it's going to, you do that in the morning and it flushes it out, and then you drink some water, but start off really slow. And it's only like $4 for like a 2-month supply.
And I think for anyone who's familiar with most pre-workouts out there, I believe niacin at least was a fairly common ingredient that gives you that flush kind of experience for the workout. Yeah.
But most people don't know the Bill with the big book, AA, because I used to write programs for DUIs for the state of Arizona too. When we did the research, he didn't stop drinking by going to AA meetings. They started those after him. He'd stopped drinking by doing niacin because it got oxygen to the brain.
Wow.
So we need oxygen to the brain and the capillaries, and there's a surface matter that holds everything in place there. And most people, it's so stressed out and tight that the brain should breathe, just like every cell should respirate. But the brain should breathe. When the fluid comes up, that's when it's cleaning out the glia cells at night when you're sleeping, if you're breathing right, it'll flush over the system, wash those hands like I was talking about earlier, and then dumps it out of the system. But if you're so tight and stressed out, that your body is not able to breathe, even though everything could be going good for you, but some people just still hold on to the stress and tension. The other thing I would recommend for the brain is high dose good vitamin C. Look at the vitamin C because there's a lot of junk vitamin C. Even Marcola sells junk vitamin C. I can't believe it. If it's made in a lab, it's not real vitamin C. You got to get.
What's the best source then?
I use a company called Optimum Health Systems.
Or what should we be looking for? That sounds like a great recommendation. Thank you. But when
it won't have riboflavonoids.
Okay.
I mean, that's a straight giveaway that it's a chemical.
Okay.
It's not a real vitamin C. So, and that's going to be good they say that one high dose, like 500 milligram vitamin C, will bring down inflammation in the brain tremendously. There was one study, I think it was 25%. It's almost as good as grounding. Grounding showed 27%. If you sit in a grounding mat for so long, it actually brings down the inflammation in the body. And that's really where inflammation aging is what's causing.
Inflammaging. Inflammaging. Yeah. Now, is that something, 500 milligrams to kind of piggyback off your last statement, is that something most people could or should be doing daily?
They could do. Some people do 3.
Wow.
At that. It depends on how bad your inflammation is.
How would we know how bad our inflammation is?
Because you have aches in your joints. The aches in the joints and that's your inflammation, because what happens is the minerals drop out of solution and they crystallize and they go to these pockets, and then we call them different itises. But it's really all the same thing. It's the minerals being leached out of your bones. And people go, why have I got brittle bones? Because you're eating a bunch of sugar and your body's saying, I'm going to rob Peter today because you're going to buy Paul some new bones later. But there are no new bones later. You get artificial bones, and then you have other problems that happen.
If we want to take a look at maybe we want to get some labs, some advanced labs, or even just decent diagnostic labs, what are some things we should be looking at or asking for in this lab panel to look at things like inflammation or markers to work on brain health?
Every lab test gives you the inflammation markers. They usually just just don't talk about them. Ask your doctor, whoever your healthcare practitioner says, what's my inflammation levels? Nowadays, what's really cool, ChatGPT can be crazy too, but if you dump your labs into ChatGPT and say, give me a reading as if you're a world-class health practitioner, they'll tell you all of those things.
Is it just like, to get granular here, are we looking for C-reactive protein?
Yes,
what other
exactly.
markers should we look at?
That's the
like,
main.
what should we be making sure are in our labs to look for things like inflammation?
Yeah, well, that's one. And then what is your, a lot of people don't have the right amount of red blood cell count. Like when you think about, like take blackstrap molasses to get it and things like that, when you don't have enough iron in your bloodstream. And a lot of people are just tired all the time. Well, they might be at 13 or below in that number. It should be up to 15. So you have to eat foods like, some vegetarians don't realize their body's not designed to be a vegetarian. They might have to get some organ meat supplementation or something like that to start bringing that up. Because once you bring that up to 15, you'll have infinite energy. But if you don't have it, think in terms of every one of those, all the iron in your body works like a magnet. A magnet has a field around it. When you're doing things right and everything's together and you're meditating, they say it creates a field. All those magnets line up in you. They're all in you as little iron particles. Literally,
yeah.
And they charge you. Yeah. And that the carbon atom, if you really broke it down and looked under an electron microscope, looks like a pyramid. So when you think about it's a structure and this energy flows through the system, that's why they have meridians. You look at Chinese medicine and things like that, or they have the chakra system in India. They're just we look at the physical organs, but they're looking at the energy systems that mirror those organs. So we know that these kind of supplements, when we measure supplements, if it doesn't move the nervous system when you take it, and I've seen a lot of junk stuff out there, but I've seen a lot of good stuff too. They're coming up with stuff all the time because we have so many problems. But I think you can over supplement. I love like energy bits. They're called.
We've had Catherine on the show before. Catherine Arnson,
she's a good friend.
PhD,
she's a good friend of mine. Yeah. And I travel with them. I do it twice a day when I travel.
And that's all chlorella, not salmonella. Spirulina, excuse me. And algae focused things.
It's like one ingredient, it can last forever because but what it is, those are light activated. So like when you're doing BrainTap with them, you got that in your system. Now you're activating that algae, you're getting more energy. So they're not just giving you energy because the food is going to give you energy. They activate by the sun. So when you're eating it, it's good for you. It's working with your body. So there's different foods like that, and they're easy. Like especially if people aren't getting enough vegetables, and even if you're eating vegetables all day long, they've polluted our soil. You probably had somebody on your show already talking about that at some point. You can't eat like an orange.
Yeah, the bioavailability is just
to get the orange
significantly less than what it used
to get the orange of 1972. You have to eat 20 oranges. Nobody can do that. So we don't
unless
have
you're growing them yourself, and even then it's just maybe better.
Yeah. But what you want to do is you want to supplement the right things, like some kind of greens, maybe even getting up in the morning and eating greens. I have a good friend, Daryl Joffrey, who has a company called Get Off Your Acid. and he talks about, his book is all about that. And it's a green drink that I do. And it's like, that's my breakfast.
Okay. Like a greens mix, super greens. I've used one forever. Probably one of the first supplements ever really started taking regularly.
Yeah. That's really good. Get your body going. Get to, chloroform.
Enhances alkalinity and everything. Yeah. Okay. So I think a lot of this stuff, should someone embark on some of these changes, it's one of those things. It's more qualitative, right? You're going to know when you're right or when you're not right. We've also talked about how maybe getting some of these labs to actually look at more granular things to make sure things like inflammation are in check, and hopefully getting ahead of chronic disease, illness, Alzheimer's, things like that. What are some other things someone can do, maybe in a both quantitative and qualitative way, to know I actually am moving the needle on my brain health?
Well, we need to have connection. They say addiction is lack of connection, right? People get addictive brains because they're trying to connect to something. So you need to have real friends. I mean, it's good to have Facebook friends, but if you get a flat tire in the middle of the night, who can you call? Develop those kind of friendships.
So community.
Yes, you need a community to do that. In that, they know that actually plays a role in our brain health, in our mental fitness. That's why in the Blue Zone books and things, they talk about those communities like that.
That's the biggest through line, right?
Yeah. And then the other is move and breathe. It doesn't have to be anything I talked about, but the one study they just came out with was that showed a 10-minute walk betters your brain. 10 minutes. Doesn't have to be a long time. And if you can't do 10 minutes, do 5 at first, because a little bit of something is better than a whole lot of nothing. If you can do it after you eat, you actually boost your metabolism. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So if you have an HRV or a Whoop like you do, or something that's measuring you'll notice when you eat, your HRV goes down. That's because it's taking all the energy to digest. But if you get out working, now the blood has to go back out into the muscles and ligaments and tendons, and starts to expend more energy.
I'm also wondering if this aspect of our well-being is like a lot of other things I talk about in the show, and that's things like hormones and unique areas that just are different, kind of decade to decade. Mm-hmm. I'm about to turn 40. As we're recording now, I turned 40 in less than a month. Mm-hmm. It's wild to say that out loud. But so I'm curious, what is maybe something someone now in their 30s, myself, should be doing to focus on brain health that is maybe going to be different in their 40s? Or is brain health really that drastically different decade to decade? Does it change 30s to 40s?
Well, it changes 50s? Like with the kids, we are in schools all over the world. School systems use BrainTap to help. They started off first using them just for troubled kids, and then they use it for the whole school.
When they say troubled, what do they mean?
Learning disabled. Maybe they disrupt the classroom. Maybe they had a bowl of Frosted Flakes before they came to school. Or whatever.
Trouble, just poor diet. Yeah.
Yeah. But the kids only need a 10-minute in the morning. We call it brain prep. To get their brain ready to learn. Usually they regulate pretty well. They're not having a problem sleeping yet, things like that. But as we age, especially after 40, 50, 60 years old, you're going to have to start creating a ritual that works for you to go to bed. Now, I still believe that you do have to have a ritual, even though I jokingly said I beat any biohacking. You can go around turning off lights at least 2 hours before sleep. That signals your brain it's time to sleep. If you are sitting in front of the TV, make sure you're far enough back that you're not getting the radiation from the screen. And if you are sensitive, like with blue eyes, you might have to get some blue blockers, to block that blue light, to prepare yourself. But the other thing is, don't watch anything stimulating at night after 8 o'clock. That means no news. Because what do they do for the news? They go scour the whole earth.
And none of this, no scrolling, right? Like
and every
most
time,
of us do.
The average person looks at their phone 300 times a day.
300.
Now, if you're a pessimist and you look at that phone 300 times a day, your body's going to be a wreck because you're shooting that. Remember that liver is pumping all that.
That's cortisol. 300 times of horrible information.
Yeah. But if you're an optimist, maybe you get away with it. But the thing is that we didn't have that. I mean, when I was your age, even at 40, we didn't have phones. I actually could lock the door in my office and not have to talk to anybody till Monday. And there was a machine there. I'd turn it on and somebody else would take down all the notes. And if there's somebody I need to talk to, they'd give it to me. Now, like you're available 24/7. And we have to have good dental hygiene or digital hygiene, I should say. Turn off those. Nothing is that important at night. We have a rule at our house: after 8 o'clock, no technology. And even when the grandkids come over, they know it's 8 o'clock, Grampy. We're turning everything off because I said now it's time. We can sit together, talk, play a game, whatever. When they're over, we try not to watch TV to condition them. But we might watch a comedy or two. I like to watch fun things.
I'm curious, what is if you had to design the perfect 24 hours for most Americans right now, most human beings, in terms of prioritizing brain health, like. Can you walk us through what would that really look like?
What it would start off with is you'd wake up in the morning, you drink a tall glass of water with some salt in it because you're a battery and you're probably losing some minerals along the way. You should actually add minerals to every glass of water you have. Because
minerals being
like Celtic salt.
Okay.
You could also get some of the good they do for cramping, body cramping, the drinks they have.
Magnesium. Like I drink, this is elements, sodium, magnesium, potassium.
Yeah, that's a really good brand.
I have, that's good to hear. Honestly, I do 2 to 3 a day.
Yeah, that's good. So drink that through the day. You should be drinking half your body's weight in ounces of water. So but not at one time. But in the morning, remember your brain shrunk 3/4 of an inch. We need to hydrate that brain as quickly as possible.
So we're going to have minerals in our water, prioritize them first thing in the morning.
Yes.
Okay.
And then you're going to go do your breath work or your BrainTap session. You're going to tune up the brain, getting that SMR brainwave. That's the one that atrophies as we age. So if we keep that one tuned up, we're going to be able to have more cognition, more focus, more attention, get more done. And they're only 10 minutes. We've actually had people that they set their alarm to go off 10 minutes early and they just do it in bed before they get out of bed. You can do it that way too.
Easy.
So then you just live your life. Do whatever. No snacking between meals. There's 2 phases of digestion. And when we're in our weight loss clinics, that's the one thing we taught them. We didn't teach them any diet. We said, you have to give yourself 4 hours to digest the meal you just had, 2 hours to burn fat. Now your brain gets fed too. If you eat within a 4-hour window, even a cup of coffee, anything that's not water and minerals, your body has to stop all digestion at that moment, wait for everything to catch up, and then do it again. And that's why people have a sluggish digestion, because we're not like that. We didn't eat like that in the wild. Our bodies didn't do that. No. So then when it comes time for lunch, and I don't eat a big breakfast. I usually do a green drink and things like that. But every once in a while I have breakfast. But I like to kind of intermittent fast. But I'm actually having greens, so I'm kind of cheating, doing it. But then what happens is at lunchtime you have a good meal, whatever that is. Make sure it has fat, fiber, and protein, and that's important because that's going to slow down sugar. Anything you add in that has sugar is going to just deter your digestion. And then at 2:00 in the afternoon, when I have that biological low, I'm going to do either my box breathing, or I'm going to do my BrainTap session. Or if I can't do it during that time because I work, when I get home from work before my family, they know, hey, I'm going to go tune up for you guys. You're going to come out with energy. Yeah. You're going to have fun with your kids. You're going to have fun with your spouse, whatever that is.
This is something someone could do in the car, when they park in the driveway before they go into the house, right?
Yeah, they could do that. And then, again, just live your life. Have fun. Do whatever you're going to do. If you're going to drink anything between meals, you can drink herbal teas. They seem to have a calming effect on most people. Like if you need to detox, like with the inflammation, one good thing you can do is like peppermint tea. That's a detoxer, and it gives you energy too. So it's like drinking coffee, but you're getting a benefit instead of. And then at night, whenever you're done doing whatever you're going to do in the bed, when you're ready for sleep, you either do that 4-8 breath.
Breathing again.
Yes, breathing again. Preparing yourself. You're going to review your day. All the good times in your day you're going to make in color. You're going to remember them because those are meaningful moments that you don't want to forget. Any negative thing that happened, you're going to put it in a picture frame and say, what could I learn from that experience? Because if you don't learn it, guess what? You get to relive it. That's the old saying. If you say, wow, this happened to me, how could I do it differently? How could I have responded differently? Now the brain starts to create choices. Because if you only have one way, remember, you have an addiction. 2 ways, you have a dilemma. 3 ways, you have solutions. So when you can't be yes and no. It can't be like the angel and the devil on your shoulder because you won't make a decision. So think in terms, and I always tell people that third one could be something crazy, something you never do. Because if the brain can think of that crazy one, it had to think of all the ones between there to there. Now it opens up the brain to be, that's why like they say the crazy people are taking over the world, right? They're like Steve Jobs and those kind of people, because you have to think outside of what's happening. If the solution was there for you, you wouldn't have a problem. So it's got to be outside of the problem state, like Einstein said. You got to go to that solution state and return with the problem in mind and solve it.
Well, Dr. Porter, that really gave us insight into this ideal 24 hours, and everything we've talked about is helping us get into this ideal life, this lifestyle of living a life ever forward, I say. So my last question to you is to bring back home to the theme of the show. What do those 2 words mean to you? If I were to ask you, how do you live a life ever forward? What does that mean to you today?
It means if I plan on doing something, I'm going to have the energy and resources to do it. I'm going to plan to do it. If I don't have them, I'm going to go learn from someone or something to teach me to do that. Because you can do anything. If you say, just automatically say, I can't do that because somebody else is doing it. Anybody can have this kind of life you're talking about. But it starts with where you're at. And don't beat yourself up. Take those small micro changes are going to make the bigger changes in your life than just trying to go wholesale out and say, look, family, we're going to get rid of everything in the cupboards. And no, just slowly do it. And when they see you have your energy, they're going to ask you, how you got so much energy? How are you sleeping so well? Then you can share with them. That's called discernment. Because especially when you first start making a change, some people jump on the bandwagon too early, or they start shouting from the rooftop and then they fail. Nobody needs to know what you're doing. And failure is never final. Failure is only final when you stop.
Let the results do the talking for you.
Yes.
Absolutely. Fascinating. I feel like I could, maybe got to come back to a part 2. I feel like every answer you gave me more questions, and just makes me want to get more curious about what's going on in terms of energy, light, brain health, breath work, all these things you've been hitting on have definitely
We'll get you a
added
BrainTap,
immense
then you can
value.
use it for
I
a
would
while.
love
We'll come back
to.
and do it. Yeah.
I'm curious. I was going to ask, are you familiar with Wave Neuro?
Oh, yeah.
I've done 2 brain scans with them down in they're like in Carlsbad, Encinitas area. And I'm actually due. I haven't had one in almost 2 years. I did one and then one exactly 1 year later. I would love to get another one. Maybe not as a new dad. I'm curious, but give me some time to spin
That's kind of what we do with the Wavi.
Okay.
It'll give you a nice brain map of what's going on, but we have the solution. They just give you the reading. And you can't, this is not something you can do on your own. You need to, either the breathing techniques, the activities, or you can take the technology route like BrainTap. But we'll get you a BrainTap. You can use it for a while. Then we'll come when I come
Would love
back.
to check it out. We'll love to check it out. We'll maybe do a personal results follow-up. Yeah. Where can my audience go right now to connect with you the most?
Any social media, Dr. Patrick Porter. And then our main site is BrainTap, where they can get 14 days free on the app. They can start doing it today. And,
awesome.
And 90% of people who download that app report back that they're sleeping better within 3 days. So
who doesn't want better sleep in 3 days? You're a fool. Right. Even someone like myself who has optimized and prioritized sleep for years, I'm always looking. If I can even just get sleep is that important and that much of a needle mover in everything else in our life. Even again, someone who's optimized it like myself, if I can just get 0.5% better, 1% better,
with you, what I would say,
I'll take it.
For you personally, when I looked at your scan, I would say you're going to sleep too fast. Just take some time to do some breathing. It's just like a kid that's trying to fight to go to sleep.
Oh, when I lay down, I'm out.
Right.
All
That's
the time.
too fast.
Yeah.
So you're not unwinding your body. That's not why you're getting REM. But if you could just take 5 minutes even, it's going to be a big difference, because now that stress isn't going to be in the body. The body doesn't want to come out of that deep state because it knows there's stress out there. So you relieve the stress, now the body can go. You want it to be in a flow state while you're sleeping.
And you're the second expert who has shared that feedback with me. I've had Dr. Michael Bruce, the sleep doctor,
he's our guy too,
on a couple months ago, and he was telling me the same thing. I think a lot of us think, oh, I fall asleep so fast. We think that's good, but I'm here not so much.
No, you got to unwind the body. Think of yourself as like a big capacitor. You're holding this charge. You know, if we have a good day, everything's fine. Little Jimmy breaks the plate. We just say, hey, okay. But if we're having a bad day, little Jimmy breaks that same plate. We're going to have a different reaction. So we want to make sure we're always in the good day. Okay. You know, we're always clear. And we don't know it because a lot of people don't feel from the neck down. You know, so we got to get.
Man, jeez. Well, thank you so much. This was so informative and just high energy. I love it. And I have all of your information down in the video description box on YouTube and the show notes for everybody listening. Dr. Porter, thank you so much.
Thank you, man.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Great.